Are you getting ready to take the Praxis Middle School English Language Arts exam? That is test code 5047. If that is a test that you need to pass, then good news. My name is Bob, and I'm a test prep expert with study.com, and I'm going to help you and walk you through everything that you need to know in this video. We're going to cover everything that is on the test, how to best prepare, and my top 5 strategy tips so that you are ready for test day. All right, let's jump in. Praxis 5047 tests whether you have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to teach middle school English language arts. You'll answer questions on the following 4 topics. 1. Reading. 2. Language use. 3. Writing, speaking, and listening. 4. English language arts instruction. So how long is the test and how is it scored? The total test time is 2 hours and 40 minutes or 160 minutes. This time is divided into 2 sections, 110 selected response, also known as multiple choice, and 2 short essays, which Praxis calls constructed response. Praxis 5047 gives 2 hours and 10 minutes for the selected response questions. This gives you a bit over a minute per question. So strategy tip number 1, aim for about 50 seconds per selected response question so you have cushion for harder questions. Don't be afraid to skip a question and come back to it later if you're stuck. You'll have 30 minutes for the 2 short essay questions, which Praxis calls constructed response. Aim to complete each constructed response essay in about 12 minutes, which will give you a few minutes of buffer for revision. The first essay will ask you to interpret a piece of literature or an informational text. The second will ask you to discuss approaches to teaching, reading, or writing. Here's where my second strategy tip comes into play. Take a minute or 2 to quickly write an outline of each of your answers, so you can quickly organize the ideas in your head and avoid getting stuck in the middle of writing. No one likes dealing with writer's block, and frankly, you don't have the time to. You'll see a couple different question types on Praxis 5047, but almost all of the questions are multiple choice, which Praxis calls selected response. Most of the multiple choice questions will have a single correct answer, but some of these multiple choice questions will have 1 or more correct answers. You can identify these questions by the phrase, select all that apply. There are a few other types of questions that are less common, including some with click and drag elements, and some with audio or video prompts. So we have covered the basics. Now, let's dive into some test specifics and what to expect from the individual questions themselves. The Praxis 5047 will distribute its questions into 4 categories. 1. Reading. There will be 50 selected response questions, making up about 46% of the exam. One of the most constructed response questions will also deal with reading. 2. Language use and vocabulary. This category will contain 16 select response questions for 11% of the exam. 3. Writing, speaking, and listening. With 26 selected response questions, this category takes up 18% of the exam. 4. English language arts instruction. This category contains 18 selected response questions, totaling 25% of the exam. Additionally, the second constructed response question will have to do with English language arts instruction. Let's dig into each content category a little bit more. Also, check out our channel for videos that go into a lot more detail for each category. These walk through lots of sample problems so you can get a good understanding of the types of questions on the exam. The reading category is by far the broadest, covering 3 main areas. 1. General knowledge will test your knowledge of major works, authors, and contexts. You may be asked to identify a representative work from a particular school of writers, such as the Harlem Renaissance, the British Romantics, and the metaphysical poets. You'll also need to know the different literary characteristics of different time periods, such as the American colonial or British Victorian period, genres such as poetry versus literary nonfiction, and subgenres such as epic poems versus lyrics. This isn't about knowing specific scenes from individual books. For example, you won't be asked about how long Hester Prynne stood on the scaffolding of the Scarlet Letter. However, you might need to remember that the book took place during the colonial period and was written about the Puritans. 2. The literature area will test your understanding of and ability to analyze a piece of literature, including your ability to understand literal and inferential text interpretations identify themes within and across works, and explain how literary elements, word choice, and poetic devices contribute to a text's meaning. Lastly, the informational text and rhetoric area will test your ability to support a literal and inferential text interpretations via textual evidence and explain how the organization of a passage conveys an author's purpose and perspective. You'll see a lot of questions with passages paired with a couple of questions. The passages are usually pretty short, just a couple of paragraphs. Occasionally, you may see two short passages or poems and have to compare them. Here's an example of a question you might see in the reading category. The second category, language use and vocabulary, will test your understanding of English grammar, usage, syntax, and mechanics. It will also ask you to explain how punctuation, context, and word order affect word and sentence meaning. Make sure to brush up on your grammar and punctuation rules. Here's an example of a language use and vocab question. Writing, speaking, and listening. The third category asks you to explain the characteristics of various types of writing, including argumentative, informative, and narrative styles. Expect either audio or video question prompts to appear in this section. Here's an example question with a short passage that asks about the purpose of writing. English language arts instruction is the fourth and final category, examining your knowledge of research-based teaching approaches to language acquisition and vocabulary development for diverse learners with an emphasis on middle school English students. It may ask about techniques for encouraging collaborative discussion or about using technological tools for enhancing instruction. In addition, this section will examine your ability to form assessments of students' writing in order to both deliver constructive feedback and improve future teaching methods. Here's an example question. There's a lot of content here. That's why my third strategy tip is to keep in mind that most of the selected response questions will require you to access several areas of knowledge to come up with the right response. Literature and language is a complicated subject, and it's hard to isolate areas of knowledge for a single question. Think holistically about the questions and possible answers. As mentioned earlier, there will also be two short essay or constructed response questions. They will assess your understanding of how the literary devices used in a given literature or nonfiction passage affect the meaning of the text overall. For these questions, remember to use the text as evidence for your points when possible. The second will examine your ability to teach reading or writing at the middle school level. You'll be tasked with analyzing either a student's work or classroom situation, identifying a student's strengths and weaknesses, and describing an instructional activity that addresses those strengths and weaknesses. My fourth strategy tip, therefore, is to become familiar with common strengths and weaknesses in student writing so you're more prepared for this entire section of the exam. We have videos that go into the constructed response questions in a lot more detail, but for now, just remember that you only have a total of 30 minutes for both questions. Spend a minute or two thinking through your response and making a quick outline and then get to writing. You don't want to run out of time. The Praxis 5047 covers the full range of middle school English, so there's a lot to go over. It's likely that you've already learned all of this yourself, but it's equally likely that you've forgotten many of the concepts and details, especially the nitpicky grammar rules or obscure literary errors. So what's the best way to prepare? We recommend starting with a full-length practice test. Study.com's test prep course offers multiple, so that you can identify where you need to spend most of your study time. Don't worry about your score the first time around. You were just trying to figure out where you need to focus. Study.com will generate a study plan with top priorities for you. If you use other test prep materials, you may need to analyze your practice results manually. Watch lessons to review the topics in your study plan and do practice problems or make flashcards to transfer the material to your long-term memory. And that brings me to strategy tip number 5. Practice, practice, practice. There is no substitute for working through sample questions that mirror those that you will face on test day. Every practice question that you do is going to help you be that much more prepared. Need a concrete prep recommendation? I highly recommend Study.com's Praxis 5047 Middle School English Language Arts Prep course. It covers everything that I just went through, but in a ton more detail. The course, written and vetted by former teachers, also includes short-form videos for every relevant concept and a bank of high-quality practice questions with answer explanations. And what's more, users who complete the course have a 92% pass rate on the test. If this video helped you, check out the other videos in this and other series for more Praxis test prep. And please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when new teacher test prep content drops. Are there specific tests or questions that you want us to cover? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to circle back once you have passed your Praxis 5047 test so that we can all celebrate with you. Good luck.